All right, so let's just go ahead and get into it. Really quick, let's just see what the market looks like. As far as the mortgage market right now, nothing's changed since last week. Um, as a reminder that in July, Hometown Heroes is back, so you have up the chance to get up to $35,000 towards closing costs for somebody hasn't purchased a house within 3 years. So a first-time home buyer, and then I believe the credit score has to be a 620 or 640, something of that nature. So keep that in mind. So this is May. So in June, you definitely want to get contracts in place. Also, remember our season starts to come up in June, July, August. Those 3 months are a good push for everybody. If you had an old client that's been waiting, this is the time to do it. People wanted to move in for schools. They want to get situated, and summertime is our one of our peak times to start selling and listing properties. But let's just go ahead and take a quick look at where we are with the market because I just saw, let me see, share screen, boom. All right, there's a second to share. All right. So today we're going to go over comparables. This might be a refresher for most. Another thing I want to point out too is don't forget to sign those buyer agreements. When you're working with a buyer for exclusive representation. And I'll give you an example. We had a call in the office for one of our listings, and it was we met him at the property. He wasn't represented. We made sure of that. And well, long story short, his realtor comes to the property and has no clue about the property, didn't even know anything. And we had a list of properties ready to go to see for that day. And we also had the buyer agreement to have him sign that day as well, before we can, because he was meeting at one of our listings, so he wasn't represented at the time. Well, he hadn't ended up having a buyer, so the funny part is he sent the list while in the property to the agent that he must have just found on the street, and she called the list that day to get all the appointments for the same thing that we had lined up. So it's important to get that exclusive buyer agreement signed, even if it's just for that one property, because um, things like that are happening and people are hungry. There's a lot of people out there that are hungry, but you just got to keep in mind that that this is going to be our peak time, which is going to be May, June, July. So real quick on the market before we tap into the comps and the comparables. Let me just log in here. Interesting enough, it's still price decrease. And what happens when people aren't situating with the market, you're starting to see the expired listings creep up. Last week we had this at 100. It was like 110. Now it's at 612. This is a benefit for you guys because you can go after these listings, but this just basically means that the sellers aren't adjusting to the market just yet. Maybe their neighbor sold, for the price that they listed for, but their house is not updated. And that's what the problem is in our inventory right now. Our inventory, we do have a significant amount of inventory, but the problem is the inventory that we have are not great properties. They're not updated. They're not move-in ready. There's something wrong, a roof, whatever the case is. So generally speaking, that might be a sense of people that are looking to get out desperately before the market, to see where the market is. There's foreclosures coming here. We're starting to see foreclosures and short sales. That's something to keep in mind. Marcia has a foreclosure property off market significantly below appraisal value. She needs to sell it. So if you have somebody, it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath in Blue Lake, and it's significantly below the value. So it's a good deal. There is, there's an extra strategy there too. So if you want to purchase it, make a quick 30, 40,000, there's an opportunity there. But anyway, going back to this. What's nice about what's happening, because obviously we're going into May, is that these two numbers right here, which is active and we also have a pending, it's roughly bringing it over to about 2,600. Now it's just shy of the 35, so it's just under 1,000 properties. So 2,500 properties going off the market, 3,500 coming on. So just under 1,000 in difference, which is good, because prior to that it was almost 50%. So that's good news. So you're starting to see that the market's starting to pick back up. It's because it's May. the expired listings, there's a withdrawal of 314, there's a temporary off the market of 414. So that's, you basically can put all three of those together as expired, because generally speaking, 90% of the temporary off the market is they don't want to sell anymore, or they don't like their agent, believe it or not, and they don't want to pay the cancellation fee, so they put a temporary off the market so nobody else lists it. Withdrawal, same thing. Withdrawal is more of, you can withdraw the listing, but it's the same scenario. So those are basically like the expireds, but that's how they do that. Coming soon, 65, as you already see, but the biggest number still, almost the highest now that we've seen since we've been doing this, 49.49 at price decreases in the last 7 days. So 4,949 price decrease. You got to price your property correctly. So let's go ahead and talk about that for a second. So I picked up a property. I just picked a random property in Heron Bay, which is Parkland. Okay. So the property that I picked out is going to be, I think it's 33124 Northwest 81st. It's going to be this property here. It's active currently. Been on the market for 6 days. It's for 1.5. Now, if you ever been to Heron Bay, you'll know there's multiple sections in Heron Bay. There's the estate part, there's north, there's Greenbrier, there's condos, there's townhouses, there's every type of in one huge community. So that's what's unique about Heron Bay. My favorite part about Heron Bay, believe it or not, is that the HOA is significantly less. It's $300 and this $326, and you get so much. You get a clubhouse, you get on the weekends they have bars and food trucks and just huge things that they do. Pickleball, workout equipment, and it's a beautiful, if you like to run, you can run in that community nicely. But looking at this property, what we're going to do is, let's say we're trying to list this property, okay? Now, we know it's 5 bedrooms, 5.5 baths. That's very important for the comparables. The second, the other part is going to be the square footage, because that's the main importance, because you can have 2,500 square feet and be in a 4 bedroom or a 5 bedroom, but it's not really comparable, because when you look at the total square footage, you have living area of 4,383, and then they must have a little lanai or the garage. It will be probably the garage, which is 4,474. The thing is, when you look at these numbers, I almost think they're off, because there's a 3-car garage and they're only claiming that there's 175 square feet of that. That might be a little off. So something to think about too, because when you look at that, total square footage is 4,474, and then it's saying under air is 4,383. Unless those are converted to bedrooms, I would imagine that's going to be 600-700 square feet in there. So this is a quick math, really quick. But anyway, so we're going to pull the tax roll. Okay. And the reason why we pull the tax roll is because we want the ID number. Here is going to tell you what you guys already know. What they're paying in taxes, $17,265. They're 100% homesteaded since 2016. They purchased the property for $846,000, right? Here's going to show you the square footage, 4,474. It's a 5.5. You can even look at the sketch card if you wanted to kind of see where the square footage is. And this is where it breaks down. Okay, you can kind of see two stories, 3,510. The garage is 291. The living and garage is 291. So, there might be some truth to that, but see, it says half garage here. And then you can actually go to the card. The card will tell you, like, if it's made out of stucco and basically the whole scenario. So it's stucco, the stem wall, hip roof, tells you about the roof, talks about the tiles. So the BCPA really does do a lot if you just take your time to use it. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and start looking for that property. So we're going to go ahead and copy this number. There's 2 ways to do this. This is the most accurate way. And what it does is, when you use that number, it just really generates such a tight circle. Or you can do the Heron Bay way. You can just put Heron Bay as the community. And remember, comparables are always going to be closed sales. However, I do put under contract and pendings for me, because I called them and see if they got close to asking. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and put the parcel portfolio here. Nothing's going to populate yet. And what we're going to do is take away 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, put an asterisk. That shows 19 properties in the community. So just to recap that, you take back 6 numbers and then put an asterisk. Sometimes you can go back and if it doesn't work, you take that because the more numbers you take away, the more properties you're going to have to show, but it also the bigger the radius goes. Okay. So you want to normally 6 is a good number, keeps it in check. And in this particular property, we're going to at least put 4 bedrooms, at least 3 baths, so we can kind of limit everything. Square footage on here, we'll just go ahead and say at least 3,500. Okay. See, the square living just dropped at the 4 results. So let's just take that off. Let's just take a peek anyway. It just limits it to get a better idea. Remember that property was fully remodeled with the grays and the whites, and they were asking 1.5. Okay, 1.5 and change. So here we go. We look at this property, and then we see this one's under contract for 1.6. It's the same model. It's practically exactly the same model under contract for 1.6. This is why I put under contract, even though it's not a comparable. I'll call this agent and say, hey, did you get close to asking? I'm listing a property. 9 times out of 10, they'll give you exactly what they got, or within the 100,000, within the 10,000 range. So this is a good point because if it closes at this price, and you can always ask them, it's been on the market for 48 days. Did you guys do your appraisal? What did it appraise at? At least if you did an appraisal, they will release the appraisal amount. And are you going to negotiate price? This is important because this becomes a comparable once it's closed. So it's a very important strategy to contact the people that are under contract. Very important. Will appraisers do that? They most likely won't because they really go for the closed. But and then they just go for the closed because that's just what it is. But if you were to put this on there and say, hey, we talked to the buyer, the seller, they got this as the appraisal, it could help. I've done that before. Whether it helped or not, I couldn't tell you, but I always present it. Here we got a 6-bedroom, 4.5 bath. They put it on the market for 1.299. They ended up selling for 1.225. Its square footage is bigger. Okay. But let's see what the inside looks like. Oh, you know what? This is the one I sold, I think. Yeah, that's the one I sold. So yeah, so I mean, it actually appraised for $45,000 more. So we did get a good deal on this, but it's fully remodeled. I remember on this one, the roof was original, so back from 2013. There's nothing crazy about this. There was no extensive upgrades on this property, and quite frankly, the backyard on this was relatively small, and it backed up to the main street of the community. So this is basically the backyard, and back here is the main street to get into the community. So you really didn't have the size of the. If you can see the lot here, see it's kind of small. It's just more pool and everything. But that's this whole strip here anyway. So anyway, that's comparable. At the end of the day, it's a comparable. So we click that. Here we look at one that sold for 1.5. Square footage. When you see just the living space and nothing on the total space, the odds are that's the total space, but they always put it on here. There's a rule of thumb that you can put both the living and squaring so they can see, but the total square foot versus the living square foot, when you see that, that's generally means it's the total, but you can always double check in case somebody didn't put the total. But that's what they would do to put the bigger number in the living space so it looks like it's a bigger property. And he says here over, so you can kind of see under air. So let's take a look at this property. Nice backyard, has a water view, well decorated, older kitchen. I mean, it's crazy as it sounds. That color tone is considered outdated. Dark colors are not in at the moment, but people still like them. So this is more of an original kitchen. Nothing. Maybe they changed this granite and kept this. That's about the only difference. Original tile. I know Parkland's properties. These are original. You chose these with the builder, so you can see how these two are different. So maybe they changed this granite top and then didn't do, or vice versa. This doesn't look like it came with it. These are the type that come with the property. They put a couple of light fixtures in there too. But if you don't know the community, you probably wouldn't know that. But this is like when you see tiles like this and they're smaller, the odds are it came with the property. And if they're very neutral, there's a very good chance it came with the property. It's a nice property. There's no doubt about it. And then you're on the lake. You got a nice view, and then you also have a beautiful pool. So that's a comparable. 1.5, 5 bedrooms, 4.5 bath, and it's smaller than the house that has that took contract. And then this one, which is 5, 4.5, 40. See how it's double here, 41, 41. That's how they do it. So the total square footage is 4124. This one has a nice backyard, good curb appeal. You can see the tiles marble wasn't included. This was either an upgrade or they added this. Modern kitchen, very European. But overall, it's a nice house. Has a nice cabana there, which I like. Those are the gazebos are very expensive. There's two sides of it. Nice home. Comparable. Okay. So now we have those three comparables. Now there's two options. You can do a quick CMA or you can do an actual CMA. Now an actual CMA, you would go ahead and click on that. Problem what I don't like about the actual CMAs is it's 52 pages. And I just think it's just so much for no much. I mean, if you have somebody that's really picked that here, you're gonna go to pages, you're gonna put what you want. You want a cover page. You want so you want a cover page, you want adjustments and comparables. I don't put statistics and I'll put the map because I just try to save as much space as possible. Subject, you can enter the current property. So let's see if we can tax ID. Let's see if that will fill in. So it always does that. That's why I never try to do that. But I skip that anyway. Here you can go ahead and upload that actual property if you wanted to, or a picture of the property doing a comparable. This is already listed, but if it wasn't listed, you would actually add these things as the presentation. The comparables are going to come up to the last things that we just did. Now there's three. Do you need more than three? Yeah, 3 or 4. Maybe most you have is 5. But these are great comparables. Okay. So then you go to the map. Everything's going to show you where exactly it's located. Let's go back to actually the subjects. We really want to put the address on that one. So that way it identifies where they're at, etc. I don't know what the MLS is. Search. See, it has every time you put the tax roll. Have to put it in manually. So here you can put the manual address if you wanted to. It's nice to do it, and it generally pops up. I just didn't have the MLS, and if I go back, I have to go back in. So if you would have the MLS number, you put it in, it would automatically populate. All right, so that's how that would work. And you could go ahead and put 5, put all the good stuff. Market description, total square foot. Oh, definitely not that. As much information as you can possibly put. That's what you want to do, because this actually, it'll turn out to be very nice. So that's going to be there. What's going to do at that point now, when the map pops up, it should pop that up as well. So see, as you can see in the comparables, this is in the close proximity. That's why we use the tax roll, so you guys understand. Because if we didn't use the tax roll, we put Heron Bay, it would be this entire section, which is not, it's okay because it's Heron Bay. So you do have a 2-mile or a 1-mile radius that you can go through. So you could use properties, but the problem with Heron Bay is each community is different. You got, like I said, Greenbrier. You have all these different communities within Heron Bay that like even the estate part, the estate properties are massive. There's even some that size, but they're just custom. So when they're custom like that, they're a different price. They're on a bigger lot. So you kind of want to stick to the area that you're going to be doing the comparables for. So here's the adjustments. Now you can actually kind of go in as an appraiser mindset, which we're not appraisers, but we could, and we can adjust some things if we wanted to. Like, oh, there's no pool or things like that. So this is going to be the list. It's going to say it's going to go from 1.225 to all the way up to 1.5 at the high. Right? So the pricing, here's the pricing again. This is what they're going to see. And then the finished product. So here's shows the address, where it's going to go to. And then, just so you know, in the comparables, you'll be able to see like the photos of the properties. Okay, so when you finish, let's say finish, and then view CMA. And again, the best way to do that is if you have that picture, you have the time, put the MLS number, really hyper focus on the presentation. This can be emailed or it can be printed. But again, if you add all of it, it's like 62 pages. Printing, it's like, it is impressive, because what happens, the reason why it's so many pages is because it's printing all the pictures of the property. So if somebody took 46 pictures of the property, it's going to come up that way. So this will kind of be your view. So generally there'll be a house. The odds are most of the time it's no picture because it's not listed, or if it wasn't on the MLS, or you get an old picture, or if you take a picture of the property, you can put it in there and do it. It's entirely up to you. So it talks about where the property is located, exactly everything we just did. All the properties that we're comparing at the moment between the one that we have to the ones that are for sale. And you can cross check it. Basically, you're cross checking it. And it talks about square footage, how much is sold for square footage, the years that it were built. This is the list price and sales price. So it talks about the growth and the graph, where it's at, etc. The brief summary. This is all. I mean, you can see now it goes into the properties and the descriptions of the properties. So you have everything here for you. And then here's where it gets like, because this is nice because you can show them the pictures. Okay, well this is the one that sold for 1.225, and then you have another one that sold again for one, still the same property. See how many pictures there are? There's a lot. And then you have this one that's listed and sold for 1.5. This was under contract. I believe this is the one under contract. So you can you can cross, you cross compare when you go to your listing appointment. This is great. This is valuable, especially in Parkland. They love to see as much as statistics, as much as information as possible to make sure that they're getting the highest price for their property, because when most of everybody in Parkland that are selling would have probably bought their property between 7 to 900. So they'll be making a profit unless they just bought it last year or 3 years ago. Then it'd be different. Another one that sold, this one's sold. Anyway, you get the point. It's a huge packet. I don't know how many pages this one is, right? It's 29 pages, this one. And then I took out the statistics. So the more comparables that you add, the more pages it is. You don't have to add, like when you can actually adjust it customly, you can put in there that you don't want to show the photos, or you don't want whatever you want to do to reduce the packet. I would love to see this packet at like no more than 15 pages. It would be a lot nicer. But I mean, most people want to see, oh, well, that one didn't have what I had, but now you can show them like, hey, yes, it did. It had the two cabanas, a bar, all that stuff. But that's what's nice about the pictures. So that's how you do a true CMA to get everything done. Now, again, the tax roll is the biggest the way to go, because let me tell you, if you go to let's just say you went to just the other way, which is putting the community address or what the community is here in Bay, right? What happens is it populates 104. So in here in Bay right now, there's from active to close, there's 104, and they're ranging all different prices. So in here in Bay specifically, you use a tax roll, because a tax roll limits it to within that real tight quarters of community. I see there's the Cypress Points, there's so many different communities within Heron Bay that you can't even do the proper way. It will take you forever to go through them all. Like Heron Bay Estates, like this wouldn't be even comparable, even though it's the same amount of almost equivalent, but the square footage is bigger. See, this is what I'm saying. The estate part's totally different and it's small. So the estate part in Heron Bay is all the way in the back, and everything's custom. Everything they do is in there is custom, as you can kind of see on these particular pictures. I mean, Can't get any more custom than this. This is as custom as it gets. Beautiful home. They're asking $3 million. You know, they went with the big when European was coming out. This is the beginning when it was like the lighter browns, when the modern European style came out. But they also mixed it with modern up to current, you know, so it's a nice house. I would definitely consider something like that. But they want $3 million, been on the market for 40 days. You know, that's kind of and this agent is super detailed. When you start doing stuff like this, living room sizes, this is amazing because the people that are going to buy this house, they're going to go in and measure. It doesn't matter. Anybody that buys a house in the 2 million plus, they always go in to measure. They want to know about the furniture sizes and what they can put. And this is what I'm talking about. Even in the estate part, the HOA is not bad at all. It's 1,024 a quarter. So, you know, you're looking at 300, $400 a month. It's nothing for that type of house price, you know, because generally that type of house price, your HOA will be, you know, $800. So just to keep that all in mind, when you use back to this, you're going to use the tax ID and you're going to drop 6 and add an asterisk. So 1, 2, I mean, let's just see it. Like, I'll show you what I mean. If you don't have to do 6, you can do 7, depending on, because sometimes in 6, there's no comps. It depends on if the community's selling or not. And that's something to keep in mind. So like if you just went to here, just do a regular search, closed, pending, active, okay? And we did it one more time, paste. Just gotta, you gotta take all the gaps away. So if I put an asterisk in there right now, it's gonna show just the one property because that's the one that we just did. But if I take away 1, nothing. 2, you get 2. 3, 4. See, 4 is good. So you can mess with it a little bit, right? So you can kind of see. So you can just keep deleting because the more you go back, the more properties you're gonna get, which is gonna be a little bit more harder. You get what I mean? So now 267. So in this case, 4 is good. So start off with 4, and if you don't see enough comparables or matches, keep it going down. And then make sure the asterisk's there because without the asterisk, it doesn't turn into anything. It's very important that you do the asterisk. Any questions? Also, May 28th, there's a title event that's going to come up. So I hope everybody's going to be showing up to that. I don't know if it's in Miami or Fort Lauderdale. I'm hoping it's in Fort Lauderdale, not Miami. We'll see about that. And then we're also this week going to be discussing the team aspect of things. We'll give everybody an update on next meeting. But other than that, if anybody has a question, you know, I'm available all day today. Just reach out to me. All right, guys, have a good day.